Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf. It's the last day of May, and that means no, not the May tops and flops, because there's not going to be a tops and flops in May. I'll explain in a little bit, but looking forward to June, the new books in June, TBR, to be released for the purpose of this video. So I'm looking at a couple of the new releases, and then I'm looking at the new releases and then I pick a couple. And it wasn't that easy, I have to say, because as you might have noticed, a lot of books, the publication date gets pushed back because of the pandemic, obviously. But I found some that I thought are interesting, and I'm going to share them with you. But before that, about the tops and flops, I read mostly, or at least not mostly, but a big portion of my reading in May was for the BookTube Prize. And the quarterfinals and the results will be announced today, I think. Maybe they already have been announced when this video is going up. So I will make, the next video I will make is not a tops and flops, but the BookTube Prize ranking. I just didn't have enough books to make a tops and flops because I don't want to talk about books that are okay, but I want to talk about books that are yeah or Anyway, this is not a tops and flops video. This is the TBR video, so the new books for June. And as always, with the TBR, with the to be released, we start with general fiction. And I'm happy to report that despite the pandemic, some things just never change, and that is that Joyce Carol Oates puts a book out at least once a year, mostly twice a year. And so on the 9th of June, her new novel comes out, Night, Sleep, Death, the Stars. And it is about a contemporary setting, contemporary United States, wrapped around a family history or a family story. There's a death at the beginning, and then the father, I think, the patriarch dies, and then the children, the siblings, deal with this death, each in their own way. If you're following me, you know that I've certainly not read, not even half probably, of the novels of Joyce Carol Oates, and it's often a hit or miss for me. It can't be any different with an author as prolific as that. But the novels, many of the novels that I really liked are her family stories, like We Are the Mulvaneys, but most recently American Martyrs, a story of American martyrs. So I'm really looking forward to this one in particular, because I think telling us something about the times we live in, shown through a family story, is one of her great strengths when she writes fiction. So 9th of June, like clockwork, and new Joyce Carol Oates. Next, we move to crime fiction, and I picked a debut novel, Megha Majumdar, A Burning, which will be published on the 2nd of June. I checked with on the website of the publisher. It still says 2nd of June, so I hope it is indeed the 2nd of June and it will not push back. Sorry if that happens. Anyway, Megha Majumdar, did I say that right? Yes, Majumdar was born in India but moved to the United States when she went to college. She attended Harvard. And as I said, this is her debut novel. It's set around a young woman, Jivan, living in the slums in India, I think in Calcutta. And she is accused of participating in a terrorist attack, on a train. I mean, the terrorist attack was towards a train because she made a careless comment on Facebook. And first of all, I, of course, always try to find new authors. You know that about me, debut novels. I like a good crime novel. But it sounds very ambitious because it tackles terrorism. But it's also something, um, yeah, different doesn't is not the right word, but it's something that is not that often a topic in crime books. Whether it's good or not, we will have to see, but it sounds interesting. This idea of a wrongful accusation of terrorism, and then there are a couple of other characters, a teacher, and also somebody who might be able to provide an alibi for Jivan. So we'll see, but it sounded really interesting, so it made the pick for the June TBR as crime fiction. Next up is nonfiction. And I picked an essay collection by Alexandra Petri, Nothing is Wrong and Here's Why, also scheduled to be published next week on the 2nd of June. Alexandra Petri is an American columnist, satirist writing for the Washington Post. And this is a collection of some of her columns writing about the life in America under Trump. Satirical approach. I know some of her columns. I read some of her columns that she published in the Washington Post, and she can be hilariously funny. And somehow I felt that at least I needed something funny given the state of the world and certainly the state of the United States under Trump. So I hope that she lives up to her reputation of being, satirical, but also very much able to focus on what is happening and give it a satirical twist, something like that. She, by the way, the author had an earlier essay collection published, and she also writes plays. I have never read any of the other works. I only know her as a columnist for the Washington Post. So, Nothing is Wrong, and Here's Why, coming out hopefully next week. My next pick is fiction again, and this time historical fiction. Her Last Flight by Beatrice Williams, which will come out on the very last day of June the 30th. Beatrice Williams is an American author of mostly historical fiction, and I read a couple of her previous books. They're not always to my liking, but she has a very light pen. And like I said with the previous book, sometimes you just need something, light and entertaining. And besides, the premise or the story of Her Last Flight really interested me. The book is set in 1947 when a war correspondent or former war correspondent, Janie Everett, starts to investigate the disappearance of a pilot, Sam Mallory. He disappeared 10 years earlier in 1937 during a round-the-world flight. Janie then meets Irene, who owns a flying company, and she was Sam Mallory's flying partner and pupil. And so these two women, story evolves from there. It sounded interesting. First of all, I like strong female characters in historical fiction, but also the disappearance during a round the world trip that somehow that fascinates me. So that's why this book made the June TBR in the category historical fiction. And as always, we end the TBR with sci-fi or fantasy. And the one I picked is by Carrie Vaughan, a novella, The Ghosts of Sherwood, which will be published on the 9th of June. Now, this is the first in a series. The second one, The Heirs of Locksley, will be published in September. And it is a sort of a genre bender Robin Hood story, but with a fantasy twist. It's published by Tor, so it has to have this twist. And Carrie Vaughan, I really enjoyed her earlier series, which was a kind of a sci-fi historical fiction mix, the Bannerless series. I really like that series, so I thought I might give that a try. The book is set around the myth of Robin Hood, and the premise is that Robin and his beloved Marian are indeed married. King John is on the throne, but then it's 20 years after the events that we all know of the Robin Hood myth, and then the children of Marian and Robin get kidnapped, and the story develops from there. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure where the fantasy twist element comes in here, but I picked this book purely on the basis of the author, Carrie Vaughn. So we'll have to see. Anyway, these were my picks for the June TBR. I hope that publishing will pick up and that I can indeed find next month or end of June, I can find books published in July more easily. Let's just keep our fingers crossed. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you are all safe and healthy. Looking forward to your comments as always, and I'll see you all in the next one.